Hello and welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. For those of you who don't know, I run the website, smellslikeinfinitesadness.com. It's a blog covering the best alternative rock from the 80s and 90s up to present day. I'm a proud middle-aged Gen Xer who is still obsessed with the music of his youth and loves to talk about it. So today we've got a very fun topic. It's going to sure provide some lots of debate and controversy, perhaps. Bands you love or hate. Some bands you can't just be a casual fan of. Some bands you can't just own the greatest hits or say, I like that song okay. I like that song all right. That song's not my favorite. Some bands you're like, ugh, they're terrible. Or they are my favorite band. They define my college years or the soundtrack of my youth. Some bands you just hear them, you just feel like you've got, gonorrhea of the ears. So it's a all in, all out proposition today. We're picking the 10 bands you either love and or hate. We're not just doing alternative. We're also covering classic rock, metal, kind of running the gamut here. So my co-host Chris, Logan and I are going to go through each band, discuss why they're loved, why they're hated, give you kind of a pro and con for each, why you should give them a chance, why you should think they're complete and utter garbage. Chris and I went into pretty great detail on the why these bands are loved and hated, so we decided to break this off into a two-parter episode. This is part one, in which we're going to be covering the following groups: Smashing Pumpkins, the Eagles, Rush, Dave Matthews Band, and the Grateful Dead. So sit back and enjoy. All right, everybody. So at long last, Chris, Logan, and I are going to tackle a sure-to-be controversial but always fun topic, which are bands you either love or you hate. None of those, well, kind of, sort of, they're all right. No. Bands that you either live for, have spent your hard-earned money for, will defend to the death, or bands that make you just want to, jump into traffic or smash someone's CDs if you see them with a band's name on them. So we're
zero gray area.
Zero gray. And I know we normally kind of stick to alternative rock on this show, but we're going to mix it up here and cover pretty much everything. We're going to have some metal, some classic rock, some alternative for sure, some prog rock. We're kind of going to run the gamut here and try to get a wide variety so we can go for that. And what we talked about before is
a lot to talk about.
a lot to talk about. And what we talked about prior to this, getting ready and research, that we really don't want to do any things like, the Nickelbacks and the Creeds, the Limp Bizkits. I mean, we know that those bands are more reviled than liked. I'm sure there are people out there who obviously love them because they made a lot of money, but we feel it becomes such punching bags at this point. We want to really stick to bands that have a pretty good ratio of 50-50. So that's what we're kind of going for here as far as in public opinion. Whereas
all those bands, especially like the Nickelback and Creed, they sell millions of copies of records and they come to town and they sell out the show. But for some reason, I never see one single concert shirt after that show.
They're afraid.
Like, do they not sell merch? Do they not sell merch at the show, or does nobody want to be branded? Like, yeah, man, that Nickelback, that wasn't so bad. No. You went to the show, you got a shirt, right?
You would think.
I mean, same thing with Coldplay. But yeah, easy targets. Those are the proverbial fish in a barrel.
Definitely easy targets. So we've gone back and forth. We wanted to get a good mix of stuff. I think we've got a pretty good mix of bands that you can safely say are great and or terrible. And we're gonna run the gamut here. So which one do you want to kick off with, Chris?
Well, why don't we start off with the first one on your list?
All right, Smashing Pumpkins.
Smashing Pumpkins.
Now, we have both talked pretty at depth about the Pumpkins in our previous episode about the best albums from 1993. We discussed how we both loved Siamese Dream and how that is yes, by far their best album. And the Pumpkins were one of the biggest bands of the 90s. They sold millions of records. They had some of the most memorable music videos. They were on a bunch of iconic tours. They have a diehard legion of fans. And then there's everybody else who just don't like just don't like them. Now, our format for this is we're going to basically kind of give reasons why people like them, why people hate them, and then kind of give our take as far as to our personal taste. So as far as why people like the Pumpkins, and I am a massive Pumpkins fan, my opinion is that people like the Pumpkins because they bring such a melodramatic flair to their music. They were able to combine a bunch of different genres, shoegaze, metal, goth, everything into one little package. And they were able to do so many different varieties of music that you really, they can do pretty much any kind of style of rock that you're interested in. They can do prog, they can do it all. And their first, 3 albums were so ambitious and so well produced, but there was just something magical about their early output in particular that drew me to them, because I remember I had Gish, my roommate in college had Gish and Nevermind on CD, and I made a copy and a cassette, and one side was Gish and one side was Nevermind. I must have listened to that thing for like 3 months straight in my car. that was
good grief.
That's pretty much 1991 for you right there,
Right.
I mean, two of the biggest bands in the 90s side by side.
Yeah, I remember whenever Gish came out, and the record store, I was just a part-time kid, and telling my manager that you're going to need to get more of this record by a band called Smashing Pumpkins, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I served the pie of crow very well, because they ate those words bad. Of course, we only got like maybe a couple of cassettes, but within 2 to 3 months, they could not keep that thing on the shelf, period. And then just going back and forth, or fast forward to Siamese Dream, people got the idea a little bit better, and it increased. And about the time that Melancholy came out, of course, that was just a blockbuster record. I kind of wish that they had done a little bit of what GNR had done with a 1 and 2, kind of 2 different records, instead of like a double disc. I think they would have sold a lot more, honestly, instead of just doing a double disc. But that was a ballsy move on their behalf, for sure.
Yeah,
and then after that, their output kind of wavered quite a bit, as far as especially with reaction to people weren't buying the records as quickly.
Yeah, Melancholy in the Sadness, that was such a that's probably the biggest act of musical hubris of the decade, I would say.
Yeah,
because I've been reading an article.
It
was crazy, and I read an article of Billy Corgan talking about making that album, and he was basically saying that we thought we're making a double album, but when you really think about it, when you're doing 2 CDs, that's like the equivalent, in fact, of 3 vinyl records. So we basically did a triple album. And he goes, the amount of work that took was insane. And I think that, the biggest failings of that album, as great as it is, you could probably trim about 6 or 7 songs off that thing and make a single, make like a full length and an EP or something. There was definitely some fat on there.
Right.
But I think after that, he could have come out with another double album. They could have done, but they did something very interesting, which was they made Adore, which was a very kind of trip hoppy, really subdued, New Ordery style electronic album.
It seemed to reflect a little. Yeah, it seemed to reflect a little bit more of what was going on for the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the trip hop,
and yeah, that the sound was a lot more not as forward. And sort of. And I'm going to use the artist that I think was always the trendsetter, but Bowie. Bowie was setting. He was always 5 years ahead of everybody, or 10 years at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the mid 90s, much like Pumpkins, they just started kind of following what was going on in the market, which, I guess that's the record label in them. I don't know if somebody talked them into that, but those are 2 artists that I think if they had just followed their own artistic vision, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I mean, I started to kind of fall away around, after Pisces Iscariot, because that was what that B-sides,
Yeah, that was a
rarities record.
That was a great collection of songs.
And that reflected a lot more of what was going on those first 3 records, and then they started to kind of go in different directions, and more power to them for sure. But by far those, give me Siamese Dream all day long, and I will tell you that I will love the Smashing Pumpkins.
And I think that's what happened. I think what happened was, they made an album that I really love. I think it's a great album, but people were like, where's the mayonnaise? Where's the heavy guitar? There's no heavy guitar in the thing. I think he was going through a depression because of his loss of his mom, and of course Jimmy Chamberlain, the whole drama behind him getting kicked out of the band. I think there's a lot of turmoil. And there's even one song, Shame, which is a really cool song. It's all written about Michael Hutchence, who was a friend of his. So it was a very dour, kind of dark, goth album in many ways. But when that album came out, you had the diehards, and then the people who were like, well, I like their upload stuff. And that's when their fan base kind of began to fracture. And then by the time 2000's Machina came along, there was so much hatred in the band that they blew up. And then, and I don't think
it ever recovered. I don't think it ever reached the status anymore.
No, it didn't.
At that point.
And then they come back, of course, where it's just Billy and Jimmy. And then you start getting to the point, another reason people that hate the Smashing Pumpkins, one of the reasons that they don't like them is largely because of Billy Corgan. Either his voice, which is an acquired taste, it's very nasally and, not the most powerful vocalist. But more importantly, he can be a bit of a jackass, and between declaring to every magazine that would interview him that he played all the parts on the album except for the drums, and leaving James Iha and Darcy looking like they're twisting in the wind, and being on Alex Jones. I mean, he's done so many things that you're just like it's like he almost like he goes out of his way to kind of be a dick sometimes, which I think is the professional wrestling fan in him, is that kind of he's kind of like the professional troll. He kind of feeds off that, being kind of the public enemy, and it may be fun for him, but it's a real chore for his fans because you get tired defending him all the time,
right?
But all I can say is I did see the band in September on their reunion tour with a 75% reunion tour, and they sounded fantastic. They played for over 3 hours, which is like a Cure length set, which I was not expecting. I mean, they play the deep cuts, the B-sides, Porcelina, Siva, Mayonnaise, Hummer. I mean, everything you could think of. It was fantastic, and it was really, really good show. So they could still bring it. Although I have to say, I got a copy of their new album couple weeks ago. I reviewed it, and it's going to be a bit of a letdown for a lot of fans. There's one song called Silvery Sometimes, which is basically like, it's kind of like a redo of 1979. It's really good. It's got that classic nostalgic feel to it. But the rest of it sounds real. I mean, for Rick Rubin to produce it, I don't know what happened, but it's really lacking, I think, in urgency. I just, I'm hoping they're going to get their shit together for the next one, which they're going to do. Maybe, maybe it's just getting the feelers together since they're all kind of reuniting and get the chemistry back, but it's just not rocking hard enough for me, which is the complaint from Adore. But I don't know what other thoughts you have as far as why the Pumpkins are so hated, but I think largely, it's kind of ego. I mean, it's one of the things that a lot of people may not know is that, they probably do know, is that Kurt Cobain hated Billy Corgan.
Yes.
One because they both slept with the same woman, Courtney Love, and two, because he thought that they called the Pumpkins careerists because they had guitar solos and they was well produced, which of course is silly because Nirvana's albums were also very well produced. Let's not pretend like they're not. But I think the Pumpkins, one reason they got shit is that they were unapologetic rock stars in an era that really tried to like say we're not rock stars, we're regular dudes. And the Pumpkins were like, no, we may dress like we're from a thrift store and be really kind of odd and not like your typical, pinups, but we want to be rock stars.
I may be a rat in a cage, but let me tell you, I'm making the money.
That's right. And I think there was something appealing about that for some people, and it was a turnoff for a lot of other people. So I think that's another.
Yeah, on my end, it was just kind of it was really Billy's ego that was the audacity, I guess you might say. There was that even a time whenever me and my current wife now, we got married just 3 months ago. And we went to go see the Pumpkins back in the 90s. And it was on Capitol Records bill. They gave us tickets and everything. And then after the show, I saw the representative from the record label who said, "Hey, do you want to go back and meet the band?" And we both really looked at each other, and we knew a lot of what was being said on the outside about the band.
Mm-hmm.
And we politely declined to go meet the band because I didn't want it to be one of those, I don't want to meet you, you be a dick, and then I have to go home and throw away my copy of Siamese Dream.
Exactly. That's the worst fear.
We willfully declined to meet them just because, or at least for me, just for that. I don't want to meet you and I'd rather just hear from the outside from other people that I know that did go and meet you that night and hear that you were a jerk. And we could just leave it at, oh, well, I heard he was a jerk, that kind of stuff. And not, man, he was an absolute ass. I got rid of all my Pumpkins records,
Yeah,
I didn't want to do that. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it's funny because
but I do think part of that is especially these days, he really does seem to come off a little bit more cocky than I wish he would,
Yeah, and he's always saying like, "Why can't I be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Why do people?" I mean, it's like, are the Foo Fighters a better band? No. Is Dave Grohl? But Dave Grohl is one of the nicest guys in rock, and people like him, and that's why they're so beloved. I think that he's kind of his own worst enemy in that regard. Although I will say, I did see them on the Machina tour right before they broke up the first time around, and they were actually all outside signing autographs. And I was like, well, should I not? And I just walked up and said hi for a few seconds. And he was polite. He just wasn't like super chatty, but he wasn't a dick. So that was kind of a relief. And
right.
And James Iha was very nice. He was very, very pleasant. So, but
yeah, and I can see James being very, very, very cool, but yeah, Billy just, man, I don't know. I'm not ready to meet him.
I think I think what gets me, what upsets Pumpkin fans like myself is that people are like, oh, Billy Corgan's such a, fuck those guys, and it's like, why they're saying it, but it's like, I wish the songs could just speak for themselves, because he is a brilliant songwriter, and that's what gets lost. All right, well, now we're going to switch gears almost completely and talk about one of the, I guess one of the early rock supergroups, one of the bands that defined the 70s, and every classic rock station won't stop playing them, and that is the Eagles. The Eagles are an American rock institution, but Chris and Minnie don't like them, and so I'm gonna let you take off with why people don't like them, and I will try to give some sort of defense just to be democratic.
So the Eagles' greatest hits recently was dubbed as the greatest or the biggest selling record of all time, at least here in the United States. I don't know how many that is. I don't know if it's like 28 million copies of greatest hits or whatever. And what I'm wondering is, why are they still buying greatest hits? There's like a very best of double disc that would cover it. But how they count music sales these days, also, like if you go to, I think how it works is if you go to greatest hits and buy if 10 people buy Hotel California, they consider that one very greatest hits if you buy it from that record. So that's one unit of that. It could be the same song 10 different times, but they still count that as one unit. So whatever. I mean, it's just, that's messed up math. But anyway, do not like the Eagles. Tepid, boring, absolutely soulless. I like America, the band, more than I like the Eagles, if that puts it in perspective.
Oh, I think
I'd rather listen to Seals and Croft. I'd rather listen to Bread than the Eagles. And that's all within the same sort of time frame. I mean, it's soft rock. It's a little boring. But let me tell you, I just don't like the Eagles. But then I'll tell you something that happened. Back in the early 90s, there was a compilation called Common Thread, a tribute to the Eagles. I yawned big. Then I looked at the lineup, and I really wasn't sure about it because it was a bunch of country artists doing the Eagles, and I thought,
oh boy, makes the bad situation worse.
But let me tell you, I will take Clint Black doing Desperado 1,000,000 times before I could take the Eagles doing any song from their catalog at all, period. It was really a good record. So it's not the songs, it's the band. There's something about the band that just does not click with me. I really did enjoy that Common Thread tribute record for all intents and purposes. I mean, mind you, it was, I don't remember who else was on it. It was a who's who of country music at that point in like 1992. If I can look it up real quick. I'll try to punch it up. So, Common Thread. But to me, it was much more enjoyable than anything than the actual Eagles. Here, Travis Tritt did Take It Easy.
Oh boy.
Little Texas did Peaceful Easy Feeling. There it is. Clint Black doing Desperado. John Anderson, Heartache Tonight. Alan Jackson doing Tequila Sunrise. That was a good one.
Who did Hotel California?
I mean, but Hotel California. Actually, I don't think anybody did Hotel California on this one.
That's weird.
Because it's a lengthy song. You know, honestly, I think the song's at least really a 6-minute song. And back then, if you wanted a country band to do a 6-minute song, that ain't gonna work. You know, we need to keep this stuff at around 4.5, 3 minutes or so. Especially at, see, what year was this? It was 1993. So yeah, the artists on it were just, John Anderson, Alan Jackson, Susie Bogus, Vince Gill, Diamond Rio, Trisha Yearwood, Billy Dean, Brooks and Dunn are on it, just in case. So, like I said, not the songs, it's just the band. I'm out.
I mean, I think there's a lot of people that feel that way. They just think their Eagles are just kind of like, blasé, kind of middle of the road, and they're definitely middle of the road. When I think about the Eagles, I think of a few things. I think about being driven to school by my dad,
right,
to elementary school or to high school, whenever, and hearing like Hotel California on Q102 or the Eagle in the morning, and just hearing that song, and it kind of lulled me into like a trance. Like I was really taken by the lyrics. I thought the lyrics were really kind of trippy. And it almost felt like a Twilight Zone kind of a thing. So I was like really intrigued by the lyrics. So that I actually started to like that song. And then when I first got hooked into the great 80s money trap that is the Columbia record house. What they call it? Columbia? What they call it? Columbia?
10 cassettes for a penny.
Yeah, 10 cassettes. Yeah, so I did that, and I had like the weirdest assortment. I had like Megadeth, Depeche Mode, Metallica, The Cure, Split Enz, Terrence Trent D'Arby,
Eagles' greatest hits,
and Eagles' greatest hits. Eagles' greatest hits. And that was I was like, oh, well, I'll try it, and it was a weird mix, but I was like, I kind of like the Eagles a little bit. I don't know. I mean, do I crave listening to them all the time? No, but if Hotel California's on the radio, I'll listen to it. And I don't like all of their stuff, like Peaceful Easy Feeling. I don't like that. I don't like the more country sounding stuff.
I know plenty of people, plenty of my friends. I mean, we're talking about the biggest selling record of all time now. So certainly I have to have some friends that have that record, right? Absolutely. And they like the Eagles, and they've gone out of their way to actually go see the Eagles. Like they paid money to see the Eagles.
Oh, I know. Great. I know someone. I know someone who's in like her mid to late 20s, and she is obsessed with the Eagles. That's very odd. You just think that there's still strange. Crossing generation divides. It's kind of
they gain fans. That's bizarre to me.
It is,
but they're still gaining fans.
But I think the Eagles were kind of like. The Eagles are popular like in the 70s, I guess the early 70s, and there's a lot of instability at that time, and politically and everything. So maybe it was just it was a safe, tamer choice after all the hippie stuff. Maybe that was one reason.
I mean, it's the same reason why, like the bands I mentioned before, like, Bread in America and Seals and Croft and all that junk. That's exactly, it wasn't hippie, but it was just hippie enough.
Like, what did they call this guy?
It was
like Champagne Cowboy or something weird like that. Was it like their nickname for, there's like a whole 70s rock scene like that?
Maybe so.
I don't know where I'm getting that from.
I think I remember hearing that that title before, but hey, I don't have anything against all the members individually. I just don't like the records, and that was it. And it wasn't, it wasn't them. It was the band. But Eagles are liked by a lot of people. Knock yourselves out. I mean, I'm sure they're planning another tour or something like that with Neil Finn on guitar or something, since he seems to be replacing most of your classic rock bands. Extra guitarist.
Oh, Neil Finn's gonna play with them?
Yeah. Well, no. Neil Finn's actually in place of Lindsey Buckingham on Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, okay.
Now. So
interesting.
I just figured, hey, maybe he'll just take up that mantle. And actually, I think last I heard, Vince Gill was working with him. So Vince Gill's an underrated guitarist, honestly. So
I think what was weird about the Eagles and so many bands from that time, like, you got Steve Winwood and so many different others, but, they made that leap to the 80s. And they went from this like rustic kind of sound to doing like Boys of Summer, which I'm sorry, I absolutely love that song. It's so damn catchy.
Right.
But, and then you had, Glenn Frey doing Shakedown, and no, that was Bob Seger. Mm-hmm. Another guy who did the weird leap, but Glenn Frey did The Heat Is On, and, You Belong to the City.
Well, Heat Is On, yeah.
And it got so cheesy, like the only guy that didn't really go all pure cheese was, I guess, was Joe
Walsh.
Joe Walsh. Yeah. He was probably like the one like cranky dude out of the Eagles. He was like the most like rocking of the group, I would say.
Yeah.
You had to pick one person. But yeah, the Eagles are just kind of there, It's like I'm never gonna go pay to go see them live. I'm not gonna buy any more music besides my cassette, which is long gone by now. And they're just, I do get why bands like that are just, they're just, it's something that's so. Well, I think you can even talking about bands like Nickelback and whatever. It's some bands they do not have any desire, need, or want to ever push the envelope. They like sticking in their lane and staying life in the fast lane, staying in the slow lane, and just kind of keeping it.
Yeah,
keeping it that one thing. Although before we move on, I will say you talked about how Clint Black did a good cover, Desperado. Have you ever listened to that Langley music project?
No, no.
Yeah, I don't know the whole full story right, but it was like this weird Canadian, I think it's Canadian high school, and during the 70s they would make these big music programs and try to get some of the kids to perform, and they was singing in this gigantic gymnasium, and it almost had like a Phil Spector kind of wall of sound quality. It's very eerie, and all these kids they're like singing the Beach Boys and whatever, but this girl sang Desperado, and it was a really interesting, moving cover. But yeah, you should just go on YouTube and look up Langley Music Project and see what you think about it. It's very kind of trippy. These little kids with these little,
very cool
angelic voices tackling classic rock, kind of strange.
Nothing wrong with it.
Why don't we just jump into Rush? I say we just let's do Rush. I want to talk. I want to talk me some Rush. Rush is a band that I think have been unfairly pegged, and this, I don't know. I've never been to a Rush concert, which I'm ashamed to say. I've always wanted to go, but basically, you can't get a girl by listening to Rush. It's kind of been the running joke. It's like girls hate Rush, and I don't know. I think Dawn likes Rush, but she may be it. My wife hates Rush. Past girlfriends have all hated Rush.
I know. You said Dawn likes Rush?
I thought one day on Facebook she was talking about Rush and said she liked it. So she may at least. I know she at least likes a couple of songs, but I can't.
That's interesting. Okay, but I don't remember that. I know one girl that likes. Actually, I take that back. I know two girls that like Rush. Two. One of them is married.
So I don't know.
To a guy who wasn't really familiar with Rush, I think. I don't know for certain.
Now, without us trying to be seen as two old white sexist males, why? I wonder why that is. I wonder why. Why is it? Because it's not easy to dance to? I'm just trying to figure out. I can't get it.
I guess it's one of those things where I try to kind of figure it out. Whenever I first got turned on to Rush, and it was probably 1982 or 83. I'm going to go with 83, actually. They weren't very, there was nothing about them that screamed pop music at all. I mean, they weren't three sexy guys from Canada. I mean, they weren't like Triumph. Triumph wore tight pants and at least had some guitar solos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Rush did not. Rush did not wear tight pants. They sang about the Cold War at that point. And if you went back further on their catalog, they're screaming songs about, Xanadu. Well, shit, we just did that in freaking English class. Why do I want to, hear a song about that? I mean, there was, I don't think there was anything appealing about it to, at least not even the girls that I grew up with. I mean, it was years later before I met at least the two that I know. Dawn's kind of a wild card right now, by the way. So,
always has been. We'll have to tell her.
That's true. That's in more ways than one.
We'll have to tell her.
I hope she listens.
Give her a shout out in the show. I'll make sure she does now.
Exactly.
But
as far as Rush goes, I don't know what it was that made them not appealing to a certain, to females. I mean, I thought the music was good, and yeah, maybe you can't dance to it, but it was good music.
And,
I don't know.
And even with a lot of guys too. I mean, if a lot of a lot of hair metal loving dudes or a lot of goth new wave guys, they're not going to be big Rush fans either. So it was a certain, I don't know what. And I'm trying to think of even why I like Rush. They are extremely weird band. I mean,
right.
I think I didn't really get into them much until I got that Power Windows album, which was a very big shift when they started kind of, that's even straight talking about a while ago about egos morphing and breaking up and going these little weird, like cheesy 80s stuff. Well, Rush went from this kind of 70s prog rock organ, just 30-minute jams into this weird kind of new wave sound that,
there was, I don't know if you've seen the documentary for.
Oh, it's great. It's so good.
Yeah. What was it called? Beyond the stage.
Yeah. Beyond the lighted stage. It's excellent documentary.
Most excellent documentary. Now, I will say that I know some females that have watched that and loved it, but I don't know if they went back and were like, oh yeah, Rush is so great, But I mean, it's a great story of, kids from some small, well, maybe not small town Canada, but whatever, a couple of kids that grew up together, and they've been in this band for 40 plus years now at this point. So, for me, as far as liking Rush, I mean, yeah, sure, maybe there was that like fantasy sort of driven stuff going on that we all liked Tom Sawyer and Limelight and Spirit of the Radio back in the early 80s whenever it would come on Q102 or 98 the Zoo.
Yeah, the Zoo.
The Eagle. Yeah. I mean, it was in rotation on all three of those for sure. And those are solid songs. But if you really dug in a little bit and hit like, Hemispheres or 2112 or any of those records, heck, Caress of Steel, you're getting into a little bit deeper into the catalog to where you might have questioned where they are at these days,
Yeah, because they definitely never really, they never stuck to one sound too long. I mean, I think the Spirit of Radio is such a good example because it starts off kind of, traditional kind of prog rock, and then it, has this kind of like weird police or reggae kind of sound at some parts. It's really odd when you think about it, but it's so catchy.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the song that Dawn was talking about. She likes Spirit of Radio. So see,
okay, perfect.
My brain's working now. But
there you go.
but maybe it has something to do with appealing to guys because it was like it's really complicated parts and it was impressive. Like your Neil Peart's drumming was just nuts, and just it kind of appealed to nerds. I think I think because Rush were kind of nerdy. Their lyrics are certain very very nerdy. Bite tar in the snow dog. I mean, stuff like that's really strange,
right?
They have some odd stuff, but I like their 80s period quite a bit. But go ahead.
Well, and I was going to say that 80s period, whenever they started getting to like the mid 80s, the 83, I was fascinated with Cold War, period. I mean,
we were all obsessed with it.
I was absolutely obsessed, not that I thought that I was going to be bombed on any minute now by the Russians or anything like that. But I mean, just the pop, I guess you might say the pop culture behind all of it. It was the Red Dawn movie back then. I mean,
Day After.
I mean, the Day After. Yeah. All of that stuff. It fascinated me that there was such this like end of the world culture, I guess is really what it was, that, everything was going to end or go through this big big change and whatever. You know,
it was a tense time.
Yeah, it was tense, but I felt okay, honestly. So, I mean, I'm glad that those, Grace Under Pressure. I love that record. Love that record.
Yeah, what was the
and
main?
Then Power Windows.
What was the main single off Grace Under Pressure? It was what was that? It was
Power Windows.
Distant Early Warning was off Grace Under Pressure. Was that the?
Yes.
Yeah, Power Windows was great. Power Windows had the song about making the bomb. Had the Manhattan Project. Had that track, which was great.
Yep.
And Mystic Rhythms, which I always liked. But I think I liked the follow-up even better, which was Hold Your Fire. Is that right? Hold Your Fire?
Did you really?
I really like that album a lot. I like the that China song. I like the one with what's the first track of that? Yeah, that was good, but it was that first song that tough times the man, tough talk the man, tough times.
What
I think it's the first song off there.
That open letter to something. Was
yes,
that it?
Yeah, I love that. Tough times. I could listen to that all day.
Right.
But they kind of lost me.
I had to let it go for a little bit. I liked that album, but it didn't catch me as much as the other two. But and then Roll the Bones. Ugh.
I was about to say that was their nadir. That was the low point. That was, I mean, what was that line? It was we're gonna drop some facts.
Presto and Roll the Bones I could do without, but after that is whenever they picked it up for me. Yeah.
Kick some gluteus max.
And I've probably seen them at least 4 or 5 times, minimum 4 at least, because I did see them on Counterparts. Actually, it may only be 3 times. I think it was Counterparts, Vapor Trails. Gosh, maybe I did see them on Test for Echo.
I wish I saw.
I don't know. I've seen them a handful of times now, and it's such a fun show. And you're in your tribe, of course. And there's that song's called Force 10, by the way.
Mm.
The tough times.
The man tough talk. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's still a great crowd. They love every second of it, and who knows if we'll see them tour again?
Probably not.
That last tour, I honestly wouldn't foresee it, but I don't know. You never know. You never know with those guys.
So I guess,
you know what's going to come up against them.
Yeah, it's weird. Of all the bands on this list, I'm having the hardest time explaining why Rush are so great, because they're hard to explain because their music is very, very complex. Yeah. Their lyrics are very cerebral. Yeah. The voice is like Billy Corgan. It's a very acquired taste. I mean, I think someone saying it sound like a mosquito. That's a fair assessment. It's got a very, very high, strange voice, which but I think he's one of those singers. There's certain singers that I think that start off kind of wobbly but get better. I think he sounds much better now than he used to. I think he's kind of grown into his voice.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Grown into his face. I mean, he seems like a much more like a stronger performer. I just that's also just age. You get older, your voice drops lower. So that's probably a part of it. But But that's Rush were just a very quirky trio that made songs that were not about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and that makes them special. And they
freaking sold out arenas all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, there's
weird.
It's really great. It is really weird. They're like one of those bands you can't really. Yeah, folks. If you're listening to the Anchor app, you can make comments, and while you're listening to this, so if you want to tell us why you think Rush are so great, since we're failing to really do it, please feel free to drop us a line.
Or why they're not that good.
Yeah, why they're not that good.
Even though your opinion's probably not exactly right.
I think think people.
I kid.
I think, and I get why people dislike them because I mean, if someone wants like a 3-minute rock song with a good riff and some normal sounding vocals and they can shake your ass to, Rush is not going to be it. They're going to be these long weird songs, so that they're just one of those. I call them like an investment band. You can't just like turn them on the radio. You got to really sit down and listen to it. It's one of those things. It's like you got to sit down and get into the groove and. I was talking to Kelly Edwards from Kelly Edwards. I'm gonna do this again. Kelly Scott from Failure. Did an interview with him about this new album that they did, which is this long sprawling concept album. He's kind of talking about, how it's so important for them to still get the track listing correct, get the whole process listened to like a journey. Though it's in this day and age, you can't really do that. But Rush were one of those bands that it's one of those bands that you. Back before the internet and everything, you could take the time out and just kind of chill out, read the lyrics, and just kind of get in the zone. And it's almost like in this little mini psychological movie you could play through your head. Yeah. Like a radio play in some strange way. So that's
exactly.
That's why I think they're great. And that's why I think some people don't like them. I think it's just one of those lines on the sand. If it's not your thing, no problem. But,
good job, people.
Yeah. All right. Well, you got
to get Michael to see him again. So come on.
I know.
Let's get back together.
I hate how many bands I have not seen. It's embarrassing. I've seen so many shows. You got so many glaring omissions. I don't get it.
You just made another episode right there.
There we go. Gigs that the best shows and shows we wish we could have seen. Okay, that's coming in the future.
Yep.
That may be our next one. All right. Dave Matthews. I'm trying to...
All right. So I'm at Dave Matthews Anonymous, and I walk in and I go, "Hi, my name's Chris." Hi, Chris. I bought a Dave Matthews record. Yeah, we all have, man. We all have. But actually, I didn't buy it because it was a promo that I got from like my record label person that I was like, oh, okay. Because I had a girlfriend who really liked Dave Matthews Band. And so we listened to Dave Matthews and, hung out and drank beers and, whatever. Then I bought her a t-shirt. Then I bought a matching t-shirt. They were on clearance. So they were only like $3 each, maybe, with my discount. And then, we broke up, and so now I don't like Dave
Matthews. Well, Dave Matthews are basically the polar opposite of Rush, where Rush has almost 90% male fan base. Dave Matthews are I know guys like him, but
exactly.
I know more women that like Dave Matthews that really kind of dig his stuff. And I just don't get it. I tell you, I remember I was hanging out with someone in college who I was kind of interested in, and she's like, "I'm going to play this band, see this Dave Matthews," and it's
another girl.
It was that Ants marching song, and I'm like, I got to ants my pants. You got to turn this off. It's making me crazy. That electric fiddle.
Yeah, see, it
was like a knife to the brain. His voice. Oh, the way you feel about Eagles, I think I feel like threefold about Dave Matthews. I just can't. I can't.
Wow. Whoa. No. Nobody can overtake my no. I will quadruple my hate for Eagles if you trifold it or triple it, whatever you want to do. But no, I'm right there with you though. I don't. I had that Crash record or whatever it was because I had a girlfriend at the time who was into Dave Matthews and like I said, blah, blah, blah. But we didn't have matching t-shirts. That was a lie. I'll just say it right now. But, I bought her the t-shirt. It was only $3. My one thing about Dave Matthews is that I recognize that aside from Dave Matthews himself, they're all most excellent musicians.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Very excellent musicians. But then I will stop there.
yeah, it just it just doesn't grab me. I definitely I don't like his voice. His voice is something that it's where people feel Billy Corgan and Geddy Lee. That's how I feel about Dave Matthews' voice. It just something about it. Just I don't. And I had this thing. It's and we may be getting into it later in another band, but it's that whole it's that weird way of singing where you're always going up. You're like deliberately going off key.
Yeah.
I hate. I'm like, you can just sing on key. Just sing on key. You can do that. Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
And that's like nails on a chalkboard. Then the electric fiddle, I just want to smash it. It's awful. That sound is just like, it's like Mannheim Steamroller or something. That weird keyboard sound. It reminds me of that. They're really like, there's something about it. Just it's one of those like, just makes my teeth hurt kind of thing. But I know, he still has huge crowds. He just put out a new album. I mean, he's, but for me, Dave Matthews is akin to their infamous sewer incident where their truck broke down because their porta potty exploded all over. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about their music. But I've gotten into fights with lots of people about Dave Matthews, and they get really offended.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, they get really mad. I've had a lot of people get really, like a lot of friends have long arguments because I won't give in. They're like, no, he's better than the Smashing Pumpkins. No, he's not. Nope. No. I don't like it.
Wow. I mean, I certainly know people that like Dave Matthews Band, but then at the same time, they know that that well, they call me a snob anyway. So, it's all grain of salt with me, because hey, I'm the guy that likes that cattle decapitation band too. So whatever, and so getting somebody that riled up over Dave Matthews, that sounds a little strange to me.
There are some very passionate Dave Matthews fans. Thank God my wife doesn't like him either.
I do not know those people. Thank goodness.
I need some kind of edge to my music. I don't know how to describe it, but I don't feel any edge from Dave Matthews. It's just kind of like this feel. You know what it is? I'm getting it more to it now. I have a real problem liking music that sounds super cheery. I like things that are darker sounding. I actually get more pleasure out of dark music than I do happy music. I just don't really care for like some other examples. I don't like who's another example of a band I don't like that sounds so happy. I don't like the Carpenters or stuff like that, or like, they're just certain bands that have this kind of cheery, everything's cool. I'm like, no.
Wait a minute.
I can't.
So you're saying you don't like the Archies?
Yeah, no, I don't like the Archies.
Yeah, no, that's not a big surprise.
I like the Beach Boys weirder stuff, but yeah, there's something about really happy music that makes me like my most hated song of all time.
Miserable. It makes you more miserable than miserable music, because miserable music sounds like it makes you happy.
It makes me very happy. I need some kind of edge there. I mean, nailed it. My most hated song of all time is "Walking on Sunshine" by Katrina and the Waves, because it's one of those like, "Hey everybody, hey!" It makes me like feel like really violently frustrated. So there's a sunniness to Dave Matthews that really, maybe he's got some dark songs that I don't know about because I've only heard what's on the radio, but what's on the radio.
It's funny because I think there was a record after that Crash record to where some people called it Dave Matthews' Dark Album. And I listened, I don't remember the name of it. I'm not even going to waste my time looking it up. But I remember thinking, oh, wow, this is his Dark Album. And kind of going, wow. It's a good thing you guys don't get a hold of The Cure.
Because you're not going to be able to take that.
Because let me tell you, and that's a tough ride for you guys. I can feel it.
Wow.
You guys need to get a grip. Move on.
I think too with Dave Matthews is that he's in that same. This makes a pretty good segue actually to one of our next bands, but he's in that same kind of sphere as like Blues Traveler or
oh yeah,
what's Government Mule or Widespread Panic or Fish.
Yeah.
There's a whole. They're not as jam oriented as those people. They do have that component to them. And that
the noodle bands,
and the noodle bands are, talk about love or hate. So I think if we're going to talk about noodle bands, which we should, we really got to start off with the one that kicked off the whole genre, and that's of course the Grateful Dead. Grateful Dead, of course, are an institution. Even though Jerry Garcia is gone, they're coming back to some incarnation next year. They're still playing. Bob Weir's still playing.
It seems like at least half of the people that they inducted in the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame are dead. I mean, I'd have to get an update, but I think they inducted like 20 people for that band.
Yeah,
I think that's right. It's close to 20, if not exactly 20, and that's crazy. That is crazy. First and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, the Grateful Dead, I've always tried to figure them out because I always wanted to like them because I as a kid, I loved their symbol, their.
Right. Oh yeah.
Because
the symbol is fantastic. If it's not one of the best in the business, I mean, it certainly, it may only ring to the second place to the Rolling Stone
lip, yeah, because it's a really cool image. But I think what kind of bummed me out about the Grateful Dead was that I see that image and I hear that name, and I'm expecting some miserable music that I'm going to like, something kind of dark and and their stuff.
Not
what is it about the Grateful Dead? I've never understood it. I think that's one of those bands that people that. First off, I never have understood this is not strictly relegated to Grateful Dead, but the idea of people who travel to see shows all across the country.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. I'm like, I don't know where you got the money for the first. I
don't have the time. I don't have the money.
Yeah. I mean, you have to have no other obligations.
You're a white guy with dreads.
How are you getting
in? And you're
in?
following Fish for the next 30 dates.
How does that?
What do you do?
Yeah,
and are you going to have a job later? I mean, I don't understand. Yeah, how that dynamic works.
I've never gotten
Certainly, it. They're pretty. Yeah, I haven't either. I have not either. Now, I will say I have a Grateful Dead record called Infrared Roses, which is a purely instrumental record. And I gotta say, it's pretty cool. It's just from the instrumental point, because it's just a laid back record. It's one of my chill records that I have, and I can handle that for sure. And I won't say that I'm not curious about seeing this Dead and Company thing next year, just because I want to kind of witness in the live experience of it. It's not off my radar, but when it comes to now, I have seen Fish. That falls maybe into that group of great musicians. Don't need it again.
Yeah. Fish
just don't need it again.
It's a lot to.
That's a whole bunch. That brings in way too much jammy prog, whatever it is. And I'm cool. I don't need that again. But it was something that I wanted to experience. Got it? That was 1994. So, and I will say that I am somewhat curious about the Dead and Company thing that's supposed to be making its rounds next year, just because it is Grateful Dead. But how much it's on my radar. That's how much it's on my radar. Is that I'm kind of interested in seeing it, but I don't know if I want to spend money to go see it. It's a thing.
Yeah.
If somebody gave me a ticket, I may go. That likeliness is not to happen.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it, and about like all these jam bands and how they have these people that travel, and I think that, and this, some people will be like, no, their music's great, but I feel like with all these bands, it's almost like a social event for these people more than it is about really tuning into the music. I mean, they can be strung out on acid or whatever, and just kind of, or just sit and kind of bake. Or I mean, I think the modern equivalent to some of these bands, or the one jam band that I do like, that I love, is Ween.
Mm-hmm.
And but I saw Ween before they were a jam. They didn't really become a jam band until they got a full band, which is like towards like the late 90s. So they would play Austin. They would play Austin like 3 days in a row, and they still like sell them out twice in 2 nights. But I would go there, and I'd be there so amped to see them and listen to all their songs. But a lot of people there, they're just hitting there talking and walking around. You could tell they were just there for like kind of the vibe, the atmosphere.
Yeah,
they weren't because I remember they were playing that. The HIV/AIDS song off of Chocolate and Cheese. But they're playing that song, right? And everybody's sitting there chilling out and laughing, because they're in poor taste, as we are always in poor taste. And this girl behind me goes, "That's just so offensive. I can't believe it." And I'm like, "Do you not know who this band is?" Just like,
I was going to say, do you not know what you signed up for tonight? Because
if this is going to break you, you wait till you get to some of their other stuff. On. Yeah, these guys are not PC in the least, But I kind of think that that's maybe a part of it. It's just kind of like lackadaisical atmosphere, and the music isn't so in your face.
Just a community,
yeah. It's just a community that I just don't know how to fit into. I'm just not. People they're so relaxed, and they're so just like whatever, man. And so it's oh my god, that is just that is not me. I am not.
I just have too many bills.
Yeah. I got.
Hey, you know what? Here's the deal. If I didn't have to pay bills, then I would not be picking a band like, I don't know, Fish to follow around the country. I would be finding something a little bit more, I don't know, dynamic.
Yeah.
So maybe I shouldn't say dynamic, but
catchy.
Something a little bit more in well, certainly in my taste, I don't know. I mean, I'd follow U2 around the country, Slayer around the country. Yeah. Let me hear Rain and Blood 30 times in 30 different cities. Bring it. But I don't want to have to hear like Hoist. In its entirety every night for 30 nights.
Trucking, any of that stuff.
Trucking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I think it's just it's just one of those things where you either get into it or you don't, and that's just one that I'm just I don't think I'm ever going to get into it. So it's passed me by. Sad to say.
I will give the Godfather of it a break, but everybody else, sorry.
I do remember the one. I mean, the two things about Grateful Dead that as a kid I thought was funny was that video for Touch of Grey, because he had the skeletons, what was kind of amusing. But the main thing that they got on my radar primarily was because I am the biggest Twilight Zone fan of the world, and when they brought back the 80s version, they did the theme for that, which was kind of weird, and it wasn't.
Oh, was that them?
Yeah, they did the theme for it. And that's, so.
Very cool. I didn't know that.
And they did all right with that. It was very, very Grateful Deadish, but not.
That's kind of cool.
But no vocals, so that made it better. All right, so that wraps up this week's episode. Stay tuned for next week. We'll be delving into part 2 of bands you either love or hate. In the next episode, we're going to be covering Slipknot, Metallica, U2, Radiohead, and Marilyn Manson. So stay tuned for that. Take care and see you next week.